Welcome to the Project Democracy Undecided. Our episodes, step by step, demonstrate how democratic institutions, legal mechanisms, and state organizational structures formed by public policies and controlled by citizens one way or another define everyday life in the society. If you are new to this channel, to better understand this episode, you can watch previous episodes which discussed history of democracy and justice, explained economy in a simple term, reviews with democracy, justice, and economy, as well as provided our concept of 11 pillars of state safety for citizens. Today, we are going to review Swiss state safety that exists for citizens and its 11 constituent parts. Every aspect of the 11 pillars are state-defined institutions, measured results of their performance, and clear routes for communication for citizens with state organizations. There are clear entry routes for citizens for police and medical services, judicial organizations, as well as their food reserves, cybersecurity, and the reliability of electrical supply. We will refer to the numerical indexes that are reliable and extracted from reliable sources. We will also refer to our previous videos for specific details, not to overload current episode with the information. So the first pillar is the personal safety and the rights for self-defense. If you are being attacked or if there is a definitive threat of attack, you have the rights for self-defense, meaning to pursue actions proportional to the force of attack and intended to fully stop the attack. Application of self-defense actions with higher force in comparison to the force of the attack is being evaluated by law, where the following logic is being applied. The more dangerous attack is, the more robust measures of self-defense are allowed. If the self-defense force is exceeding the necessary limits, civil and criminal charges can be applied to the person in the defense position. If the defense actions were conducted under the condition of extreme stress provoked by the attack, the law will be lenient or even drop any and all potential criminal and civil charges. However, after the application of the force during the self-defense, it is necessary to call the police, and if it is possible, to stay at the place of incident and provide explanation. Even lawful self-defense usually is being evaluated by official review. Actual safety conditions, death cases, and injuries. Let's review those. The Swiss streets are safe in general. According to sociological surveys representative statistics, the majority of residents report that they feel safe, even in the evening time. Critical fatal risks in everyday life more connected to road accidents and domestic violence rather than attacks against individuals in the social environment. There are few tens of completed murders being registered across the country per year, while hundreds are dying in the road accidents. Police registered more than 20,000 cases of domestic violence every year, and significant number of victims are victimized in a repetitive manner. This explains why the law enforcement system in Switzerland focuses on prevention, fast response, and accessible help for victims, while for regular citizens on a simple rules of personal safety and readiness to act prior to police arrival. Safety tools and measures that can be used prior to police arrival is not that wide, but enough to protect yourself in the critical situations. Law and recommendation teach to act according to simple procedure. Immediate call to emergency services with the use of the speakerphone. Move to safer place, such as place with more light or more people, or the space behind the closed door. Minimization of the contact with the attacker to short commands without arguments. conducting first aid to injured when the threat disappeared, memorization of details of the accident or of the attacker, the direction of the attacker escape, and possible witness of the accident. At the everyday life level, there is a designed mobile application called Alert Swiss. Safety set such as personal siren or whistle, powerful hand lights with the stroboscopes, charged phone with additional accumulator, base coursework of first aid, classes developing skills of de-escalation, as well as designed in advance family plan on how to connect with each other in case of emergency or where to meet. It is legal to use a pepper spray for adults, exclusively for self-defense, according to the level of threat. Procurement of civil firearms is allowed under the preset legal conditions, and carry of weapon in public places is allowed according to individual permit, after the exams regarding weapon safety operations and carry. Forbidden types of knives and having in your possession objects objectively suitable for attack without satisfactory reason create the risk for the person to be prosecuted. All these measures are additional to police and other emergency services and are designed to reduce damages on the scene of the attack prior to police arrival. Let's have a look at the police response times. Unfortunately, there is no Confederation average police arrival time to the scene data. Criteria for calls prioritization are set by cantons. For example, in Bern Canton, the average police arrival time was 17 minutes for regular calls and around 9 minutes for the urgent ones, according to the data for 2017. In Lucerne Canton, in 2023-24, the average arrival time for urgent calls was around 9.6 minutes, while 89% of arrivals were inside of 25 minutes time interval. So let's now move to social and public safety. Medical care and education aspects. There is a mandatory medical insurance in the country where each resident must apply for basic medical insurance in 3 months after registration of residency. Medical insurance companies must accept everyone without medical selections. Base packages of services are defined by federal law and are uniformed across the country. For the households with low incomes, part of the insurance premiums is being subsidized by the confederations and cantons. Average base insurance premiums around 378 Swiss francs per month in 2025 and will grow to 393 per month in 2026. The average amount of doctors in medical system is 4.4 and nurses 18.4 per 1,000 residents. The overall spending for medical care in the country is around 11.3% of GDP. The quality of medical services is being confirmed by 30-day mortality after the strokes, which is around 5.6% international evaluation. Programs of international evaluation of educational achievements of 15 years old students, which is conducted by Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, uses 500-point scale where OECD countries' average is calibrated as 500 points and standard deviation is 100 points. According to the 2022 survey, Swiss students achieved the following: Mathematics 508, Sciences 503, Reading 483. On the level of the high school, education system mostly is dual, where 58% of students choosing the path study plus co-practice in the companies. Roughly 30% choosing general academic directions, and the percentage of students who is getting school diploma with the rights to enter university is about 20%. At the university education level, around 39% of students finish bachelor's education according to the set nominal timeline, 82% within plus 3 years in addition to nominal timelines. The tuition fees of Lausanne Polytech School is low and equals 780 Swiss francs per semester, While for some students, since 2025, it is 2,240 Swiss francs. Zurich Federal Technological Institute tuition fees are set at 730, and the same. For some categories, it's a little bit higher. The main financial burden for students and their families is their accommodation, as living expenses, food, utilities, and so on, at around 25,000 Swiss francs per year. In Switzerland, education is being financed primarily by cantons and communes, while Confederation adding funds to specialized programs. In 2022, overall state education expenditures were 4.92% of GDP and 15.4% of state budget, according to the evaluation of the World Bank. According to Swiss national statistics, these numbers equal to 42.6 billion Swiss francs, or 17.8% of all public expenditures. The difference actually is stemming from methodologies of evaluations. Main expenditures are dedicated to cover employment of teachers and support staff members, which is around 67%, while percentage of operational expenditures is around 92%, and capital expenditures is around 8%. The biggest operational block is mandatory school education, while the next are high schools and colleges and universities. As a comparison of education investment at the middle school level, 21,000 USA dollars are being dedicated per student, and around 32K dollars are being dedicated at high school and universities level per students. Let's now move on to the social programs. System of personal or professional insurances and guarantees cover key risks before and instead of state social assistance at the beginning. If the personal or family income is lower than the poverty line recognized in the country, then Confederation, canton, or commune programs may kick in. For households with incomes lower than poverty line, which is 8.1% from 2023, there is a multi-level support. Cantonal subsidies to partially cover Medicare insurance, which is mutual financing of cantons and Confederation. Additional payments to pensions for age or disability retirees with low income as legal rights and as the last resort. Social aid according to Swiss Confederation norms for social support. Base need of a single adult in this kind of system is 1,031 francs per month, plus actual expenditures for rent and mandatory medical insurance. In 2023, social aid was provided to 2.8% of residents, which is around 250,000 people. Subsidies for mandatory medical insurance is large, since it's being used by 2.5 million insured, which is around 28% or one-third of country population. So let's move on to the food security. State Food Security Foundation is built based on internal food production and food reserves. Gross self-supply is covering around 52 to 53% of the food need, and the rest is being supplied with import. The risks of imports are being protected by mandatory food reserves necessary for 3-4 months and covering the following positions: wheat and other grains, rice, sugar, vegetable oils and other fats, and coffee. The reserves are being formed and used under the control of Federal National Economic Supply Agency in conjunction with the specific sectoral organizations such as Reserve Suisse. Today, these organizations are discussing the increase reserves to 6 months. The quality and safety of food is being controlled by Federal Food Safety and Veterinary Agency. The country is connected to the European system of notifications, dealing with food and food for farm animals. This system is dedicated to monitor management of food reserves when reserves are being used. There are some forces that act on food security in the country, which are reduction of farmlands, weather changes, and insects damaging crops. That is why food reserves, their management of the food quality and fast notifications form the protection system dealing with food security. The social side of the food security is to provide food for those in need in the country directly. Around 0.6% of country population is in severe need of food. There are two ways help is being provided, which is social help and urgent help. The food banks and social supermarkets cover short-term issues. This client DEC serve free food around 32,000 people every week. Caritas Markets serves 3,600 people a day, providing food with discounted prices. Total amount of citizens that are being helped every week is around 57,000. This dual approach, providing free food and price-discounted food, making this part of the state system not only resilient, but also stable across all cantons and communes, but also sensitive to the needs of specific households. To be more specific, there is no systematic hunger in Switzerland, but there is also no so-called mathematical zero of this issue. There is a severe shortage of the food that is experienced by roughly 0.6% of population, as well as chronic calories deficit is experienced by 2 to 3% of population. The bottlenecks of the system are status of residency, stigma, language, and IT barriers, and also the last mile, working hours of food distribution places, logistics, freshness, and eventually dietary restrictions. Monetary support relevant to food security is not always following food price growth. Indexation and paperwork processing can take weeks. From the free food distribution perspective, there is a donors and volunteers supply dependence, as well as complex accounting, cross-reference between the operators, delaying effective distribution of all food and food-related resources. At the market level, import dependence reinforcing risks of short-term food deficits till the moment reserves are released, especially for the wheat, oils, and coffee. There are some priorities for improvements that should be made, such as single registry and coordination of multiple operators, fast access to vouchers and subsidies, extension of number of food distribution places, and digital communication formats, well-planned in advance scenarios of reserves release and public instructions for populations. Swiss constitution guarantees every person minimum necessary resources for decent life, which is the legal basis for social help, which is the first right to get help, and this social help covers basic needs including food. Cantons and communes are responsible for this social help. If the person doesn't have the regular rights for social assistance, for example, this person has the status for the seeker of the shelter. Urgent help is being used with minimum financial help and vouchers that can be used to pay for food. There is a network of direct food help from non-governmental organizations, which is working in parallel. Tishlin Dek saving food in secure residents and distributing food with help of 162 distribution centers across the country. They were able to distribute 8,530 tons of food in 2024, with total value of 55.4 million of Swiss francs. Schweizer Tafel, or Swiss Food Bank, transferred 8,123 tons of products to social organizations. In addition, there are 22 locations of Caritas Market stores where people with confirmed need for food can buy food with 70% discounts of the market prices. Geneva's Partage organization has distributed 6.5 million food portions in 2024, which were collected from undistributed food leftovers of regular stores and food supply organizations. There are social channels of food access, which distribute food baskets and first-need consumer goods. In summary, social and urgent help covers immediate need, while food banks, discount stores, city distribution centers provide stable access to food. This dual circuit is targeting those who are statistically food insecure. Now let's move on to the fourth pillar, which is relevant to political and civil safety. According to research of international organizations, Switzerland regularly getting the highest possible score according to Freedom House evaluations, stating it's free country with a score of 96 out of 100. According to Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, Switzerland got the score 81 out of 100 and fifth place in the world. According to the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, Switzerland amongst world leaders regarding courts, independence, order, and transparency of legal procedures. These indexes are reflecting effective civil architecture. Citizens' referendums and initiatives dispute laws and even change constitution. Voters send accepted norms back to lawmakers for improvements. There is one representative example: rejection of climate policies bill. During so-called Landsgemeinde public gatherings in cantons, voters change rules and regulations in the spectrum from taxes to infrastructure and election age. For example, public gathering and vote in Landsgemeinde reduced election age to 16 years old in the Glarus canton lately. On a municipal level, public gatherings and local referendums turn municipal decisions 180 degrees, and blocking local construction development plans, reject budgets, and recompile regiments and tariffs. As a result, all the above-mentioned indexes are capturing high level of rights and freedoms, and everyday three-level practice shows how exactly citizens are pushing back the federal, canton, and communes authorities according to the rules and the will of the society. Let's have a look at the citizens versus confederation cases. The most frequent disputes citizens have with federal authorities are about migration, social programs, and access to state documents. Usually, a campaign is being submitted to Federal Administrative Court and later, if necessary, to Federal Supreme Court. In 2023, court system fully satisfied 247 complaints, partially satisfied 181 complaints, and returned 341 files back to authorities, which is showing to the positive outcomes of court cases around 10 to 11% without returns and around 17% with returns. Here's the example of one of the cases. Authority rejected to request for disclosure relevant to contracts of state procurement, and court ordered to disclose information with the depersonalization of the documents. Strategic cases can go as far as to European Court of Human Rights, like in the case of Klimat Senior. Now let's have a look how citizens are fighting against cantons. Court cases about land use, ecology, and police measures are dominant in court cases against cantons. Cantons' decisions are being disputed in cantons' administrative courts. Further, you can escalate cases to the Federal Supreme Court dealing with public rights. There were 445 positive rulings out of 3,409 in 2023 made by this court, which is around 13% of positive decision. For example, landowners' application to build near protected natural habitats was rejected by authority, while court acknowledged rejection as unproportional and building permit was issued with height and design restrictions. Now let's have a look how citizens fight against communes. Disputes with communes are mainly about tariffs, taxes, rules of landscaping, and building permits. First dispute should be filed with the cantonal judicial authorities. Later, if there is a federal aspect defined within it, the case is transferred to Federal Supreme Court. In 2023, Federal Supreme Court made 886 positive decisions out of 7,420 completed cases, which is around 12%. For example, residents received an increased tariff to pay for garbage disposal, and cantonal court ordered commune to recalculate the payment amount and return overpaid part. Important to note, courts are not cancelling or revisiting laws. Laws are being corrected via referendums and initiatives. Let's now move on to the fifth pillar, which is national and geopolitical safety. According to Global Peace Index, Switzerland is placed in the 10 top leaders on regular basis. In 2025, the country got 1,294. The lower score, the better. While in 2024, it had sixth place with a score 1,350. They're following world GPI leaders: Iceland, Ireland, New Zealand, Austria, and Switzerland. GPI is built on 23 parameters combined in three main categories or domains: current external and internal conflicts, safety and citizens' protection in the society, and militarization. National security is based not only on neutrality, but also on trust of citizens to state institutions and predefined procedures. System of civil security works pretty uniformly. Every first Wednesday each month of February, there is a national check of all sirens and channels of civil notifications. Application alerts fees is sending instructions in cases of emergency situations. Mandatory reserve of food and critical goods are formed in advance. Water and energy supply are designed with the reserves in mind. Thus, with the cases of external shocks, base services are being safe. The military state services are built based on the principle of mandatory military services and trained reserves. The permanent core of the army is not large and professional. Wider base of it consists of citizens which have basic training and on regular basis are coming for military training. For majority of men, military services is mandatory. For women, it is by personal choice. The firearms you use during the military training can be stored at home, while ammunition is being stored in military warehouses. After the military training, you can have your weapon left for you under condition of the special permit. There are alternative civil services as a substitute to military services for those who cannot conduct military services due to beliefs. Such an interconnection of civil security, strategic reserves, and trained military resources and reserves create multi-layered stability. Country can urgently deploy necessary forces while attacked, sustain order during the crisis, and support high level of safety in everyday life. Let's now move on to the sixth pillar, which is the social and economic security. The unemployment in the country is very low. In the long run, fluctuating around 2 to 3% according to the data presented by State Economic Secretary. While dual system of education covers the labor deficit with the recruitment of labor right from education institutions. At the same time, the main potential long-term social risk in the next decade is the price of medical insurance for families, especially in the cities with the high rent. We have provided the detail about the efficiency of production, taxes, and stability of pension system in previous episodes dedicated to Swiss economy, such as Swiss economy outcomes and Swiss economy structure, functioning, and strategy. So please refer to those if you want to have more refined details. International Labour Organization shows the simple relationship between informal employment and vulnerability of employees, as well as stability of income issues. In India, for example, the percentage of informal employment more than 80% in all sectors but agriculture. In Switzerland, though, the labor market is fully formalized. Thus, these risks are significantly lower. According to research of Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, the quality of employment structurally measured in three categories: quality of income, safety of the labor market, and conditions of employment. Switzerland has high employment and high retainage of employment with chronic labor market shortage of qualified workers. In the Mercer CFA Institute Global Retirement Index, Switzerland achieved 71.5 out of 100, which placed it 12th globally. The strong sides of Swiss systems are the stability and overall system integrity, while adequacy of future salaries looks low. Overall, all these indexes describe the system architecture where formal employment and protection workplaces sustain current household incomes, but pension system would require adjustment for future pension indexation. As such, labor market is stable, unemployment is low, employment of 15 to 64 years old residents around 80%. System of professional training is covering around 58% of students and efficiently dealing with the deficit of skilled trades and employees. Incomes are high, but the expenses loads are also significant, where base premiums for medical insurance are 378 Swiss francs per month in 2025 and will grow to almost 400 per month in 2026. At the same time, rent rates are adding additional pressure in the cities. To address family budget issues, there are targeted subsidies to cover high premiums, and the usage of these subsidies is around 28% countrywide. The risks associated with the loss of income are being covered according to a few categories. Loss of employment around 70-80% for specific terms, accidents at a daytime in the amount of 80% starting from the third day of unemployment, plus the coverage of medical bills. If there is a shortage of living funds, pensioners are getting additional payments to pension, and if necessary, they can get additional social payments as the last resort with the base payment 1,031 Swiss franc per month, plus rent and insurance premium coverage. The scale of societal vulnerability is not high, but poverty around 8.1% of population and social help is being distributed to 2.8%. In total, this provides a well-defined system of social protection. First, income from employment, then insurance coverage, after targeted subsidies and pension adders, and only after that, social help payments. This is how Switzerland keeps low unemployment, high employment, and controlled level of poverty with growing households' expenditures for accommodation and medical services. We had more detailed review of production taxation and previous episodes which covered Swiss economy, so please refer for those for more details. But now let's move on to the seventh pillar of the safety, which is housing and accommodation security. Most households, about 60%, live in rented homes. Vacancy remains low, around 1.15%, which sustains price pressure in cities. Protection rests on clear building and energy efficiency standards, permit procedures at canton and commune levels, and specialized landlord-tenant mediation commissions that resolve most disputes without court. The market is complemented by housing cooperatives and non-profits. For vulnerable groups, cantons and communes support rent and housing costs are covered in social assistance where applicable. Historically, the high share of renting has several roots. Post-war urbanization concentrated new supply in apartment blocks with pension funds, insurers, and cooperatives as long-term investors, reinforcing a durable rental culture. Strong tenant protection made renting predictable and socially acceptable for decades. Tax treatment of owner occupation and strict banking rules on down payments and affordability reduced incentives to buy. High prices in economically strong agglomerations and steady migration keep demand for rentals high. This is why long-term renting is the norm, and the access to safe quality housing is delivered through regulation, mediation, and, of course, targeted support. Now we can shift to the eighth pillar of the safety, which is the environmental and the climate security risks. Core risks are winter inversions in valleys with the spikes of fine particles and summer ozone episodes, water and mountain hazards such as heavy precipitation, floods, debris flows, avalanches, landslides, rockfalls, and outbursts of glaciers lakes driven by glacier melt and warming permafrost. Extreme temperatures with heat waves and local droughts stressing health, agriculture, and energy. Ecosystem degradation via biodiversity loss and invasive species. Chemical and microbiological contamination of surface and groundwater by fertilizers, residues, pesticides, and micropollutants. Soil and landscape vulnerabilities, including erosion and local deforestation. And urban risks, such as noise and heat islands that amplify heat stress in agglomerations. A specific water challenge is nitrate levels. About 1 in 6 monitoring points report concentration above 25 mg per liter, while roughly 80% of drinking water comes from groundwater. What is the response then? 3 layers address these risks. First, long-running clean air policies and federal canton action plans. Since 1998, average concentration fell by about 50% for particles that are around 10 microns, and almost 48% drop for particles around 2.5 microns. Second, hazard mapping and early warning. The National Meteorological Portal provides hazard maps and alert Swiss pushes instructions for storms, heat, floods, and other emergencies. Third, water management. The NACWA groundwater network monitors and drives measures to reduce agricultural pollutants. Independent assessments are also important in this system. External indicators confirm a high baseline with local vulnerabilities. In the Yale Environmental Performance Index 2024, Switzerland ranks 9th with a score of 67.8 on a 0 to 100 scale. In German Watch Global Climate Risk Index 2025, the 10 most affected countries are elsewhere. Switzerland is not amongst them, pointing to relatively low direct losses from extreme weather so far, even as risks are rising for high-income countries. Now let's move on to the 9th pillar, which is the digital and information security. This pillar covers data protection, resilience against cyber attacks, and access to verified information. In the International Telecommunication Union's Global Cybersecurity Index 2024, Switzerland is in the advanced tier with an overall score of about 91.3 out of 100. In the 2025 Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index, Switzerland ranks 9th out of 180 countries with a score of 83.98, also 9th with 84.01 in 2024. Operations match these scores. In 2024, the National Cybersecurity Center received 63,000 reports of cyber incidents and almost 1 million reports of phishing, of which 21,000 were confirmed phishing sites. The rise in reports reflects easier reporting and higher awareness, but not panic. The 2023 update of the Federal Data Protection Act strengthens the rights to access and correct personal data. Government and banking services rely on multi-factor authentication and default encryption. Independent compliant bodies, the Federal Radio and Television Complaints Authority and the Press Council, handle ethics and accuracy complaints. Mature cyber defense, clear citizens' rights, and working media mediation bodies reduce manipulation and leakage risks and build trust in digital services. Let's now move on to cultural and identity security. This is the right to preserve language and traditions and live without discrimination, backed by law and infrastructure. 4 national languages exist in Switzerland: German, French, Italian, and Romansh. Must be used on equal terms by federal public services. In everyday life, a majority speak a Swiss variety of German at home. About 23% use French, about 8% Italian, and Romansh is about 0.5% of the population. This linguistic architecture lowers regional barriers and supports mobility. Legal guarantees include the Council of Europe's Framework Convention for the Protection of National Minorities, ratified in October 1998. Under national definitions, protected minorities include language minorities, the Jewish community, and the Yenish and Sinti. Switzerland has also ratified key UNESCO conventions on intangible heritage and on the diversity of cultural expressions, forming an internationally recognized standard for safeguarding cultural distinctiveness. Indicators confirm high protection. Freedom House rates Switzerland free, 96 out of 100 in 2025. Minority right groups, International's People Under Threat, does not list Switzerland amongst high-risk jurisdictions, consistent with the low likelihood of systematic violence against minorities. Cultural infrastructure is broad and accessible. According to the Federal Statistic Office, there are about 1,104 museums and 1,498 public libraries. Public cultural spending is about 3 billion Swiss francs per year. Communes finance almost half, cantons about 40%, and the Confederation a little over 10%. The Arts Council Pro Helvetia connects language regions and promotes culture abroad. This mix of legal guarantees, multilingual practice, and stable funding creates an environment where cultural and language identity are protected on verifiable standards. Now let's move on to energy security. Electricity generation is predominantly low carbon. Hydropower and nuclear are the backbone. Solar photovoltaic capacity is expanding fast. About 1.8 gigawatts of new solar capacity were added in the past year, and solar passed 10% of annual consumption. Grid reliability is amongst Europe's best. Average unplanned outages were about 21 minutes per customer in 2024 and about 8 minutes in 2023. Strategic contours are detailed in our episode Swiss Made Economy, Structure, Functioning, and Strategy. And let's now summarize. Swiss safety of citizens is not a slogan, but a system of 11 interconnected pillars. Low road accidents, fatality, rare street violence are combined with the challenges of home violence, where education and preventative measures and protection of repetitive victimizations are critical. Universal Medicare provides quality services, but its cost for families constitutes strategic risks, which state and markets must reduce and dealing with those. Food reserves for months, active cybersecurity, strong institutional reinforcement of rights and freedoms, multicultural environment, and one of the most reliable European grids provides everywhere predictability. This system is strong due to the discipline of measurement, open reporting, and direct democracy, which sustain its effective. You can find a detailed description of these mechanisms in other episodes dedicated to Swiss economy and justice and democracy. This was an episode dedicated to the Swiss system of 11 pillars of state safety for citizens on the Democracy Undecided channel. If you are the first time watching our video, you could also watch previous episodes about history of democracy and justice, about basics of economic structure, as well as all episodes dedicated to Switzerland. If this episode was helpful to see how institutions act to provide everyday security, learn other episodes and share them with those who might consider them useful. Stay with us for further series where we will summarize all Swiss episodes in the next one and apply the structure of consideration we developed during the Swiss episodes to other countries and analysis of their democratic systems. Sign up, provide your comments, and leave your questions. We value feedback to improve our further analysis and episodes. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.